Before we begin, this story involves mass death, including the deaths of children. The details aren't graphic, but they are deeply unsettling. If that's something you need to step away from, we understand. Take care of yourself first. Joseph N. Quain woke up on the floor. His arms were covered in wounds he didn't remember getting. His trousers were soaked through with something red, a thick, starchy mess he couldn't explain. He tried to speak. Nothing came out. From across the room, he could hear his daughter. She was snoring, but wrong, a terrible rattling sound, nothing like sleep. Then the sound stopped. He crawled to her bed. She was dead. He made it to the door, then collapsed. When he finally reached his neighbors' homes, every one of them was dead too. You're listening to The Unlit Room. Every story in here actually happened. That's the part that should scare you. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Today, a lake in Cam Uroon exhaled and 1,700 people never woke up. Lake Nyos sits in the northwest corner of Cam Uroon, cradled inside the crater of an ancient volcano. The water was a deep, calm blue. The hills around it were steep and green, funneling down into valleys where small farming villages, Nyos, Suboom, Char, Cam, had been settled for generations. It was quiet country, the kind of place where the biggest worry was the next harvest. On the evening of August 21st, 1986, around 9:30 at night, most people were already asleep. What happened next had no warning. No earthquake, no eruption, no sound anyone survived to describe. Deep beneath the surface of Lake Nyos, 208 meters down, volcanic vents had been leaking carbon dioxide into the water for centuries. Slowly, steadily, the CO2 dissolved into the cold, pressurized water at the bottom of the lake, the way carbonation dissolves into a sealed bottle. The lake was stratified, warm water on top, cold water below. That layering kept the CO2 trapped. But on the night of August 21st, something disturbed the layers. What exactly triggered it is still debated. A landslide, a small eruption on the lake bed, maybe nothing at all. Maybe the water simply reached its limit. The bottom turned over, and when that deep CO2-saturated water rose to the surface, where the pressure was lower, it did what a shaken bottle does when you twist the cap. Between 100,000 and 300,000 tons of carbon dioxide erupted from the lake in a single event. A column of water and foam shot 100 meters into the air. A wave at least 25 meters high slammed into one shore, knocking down trees. And the gas, invisible, odorless, heavier than air, poured over the crater rim and began rolling downhill. There's a word for this. Limnologists call it a limnic eruption, a sudden release of dissolved gas from a deep lake. Before 1986, the term barely existed. Almost no one had heard of it. Almost no one needed to. Micro cliffhanger 1. But someone had. 2 years earlier, 37 people died the exact same way at Lake Manoon, just 100 kilometers south. Scientists had already started warning that the region's crater lakes were dangerous. Those warnings hadn't reached the villages around Lake Nyos. The CO2 cloud was roughly 50 meters thick, 1.5 times denser than the surrounding air. It didn't rise. It sank, hugging the ground, filling every depression, flowing through every valley like an invisible flood. It moved at 20 to 50 kilometers per hour. The valleys around Lake Nyos, the same valleys that made the landscape beautiful, that channeled cool breezes down to the villages, became chutes. The topography that people had chosen to live in funneled the gas directly to them. The cloud reached villages up to 25 kilometers from the lake. In Nyos, in Suboom, in Char, in Cam. It displaced the breathable air at ground level and replaced it with CO2. People inhaled it and lost consciousness in seconds. Most never woke up. They died in their beds, on their floors, in their doorways. 1,746 people, 3,500 head of livestock. The insects went silent. The birds were gone. Reporters who arrived days later said it looked like the aftermath of a neutron bomb. Every structure intact, every living thing dead. Joseph N. Quain survived because his house sat slightly above the valley floor. The cloud was thickest at ground level. A matter of meters, maybe less, separated the living from the dead that night. Micro cliffhanger 2. He got on his motorcycle and rode through Nyos. He didn't see any sign of any living thing. What triggered the overturn is something geologists still haven't settled. Most believe a landslide disturbed the stratified layers, consistent with the lake's dynamics, though no direct evidence of a slide was ever found at the bottom. A minority argue that a small volcanic eruption on the lakebed, the crater is volcanic after all, could have jolted the water column, but no eruptive material turned up in the lake sediment. A third theory, advanced by researchers including Hallbox, suggests the overturn was spontaneous, that the CO2 concentration at the bottom had simply reached a tipping point where bubbles began to nucleate on their own, triggering a chain reaction. No external force needed. The lake just exhaled. All three theories account for the evidence. None of them can be proven. What they agree on is this: the lake had been building toward that night for a very long time. In the years after the disaster, engineers installed a degassing system. They sank pipes deep into the lake that allow CO2 to vent continuously in controlled columns, like slowly unscrewing the cap on that carbonated bottle instead of shaking it open. It was an elegant solution. It was also, by every measure, insufficient. The degassing pipes vent only a fraction of the CO2 that volcanic vents continue pumping into the lakebed. The concentration is still rising. Additional pipes have been proposed. Funding has been inconsistent. But there's something worse than the gas. The natural dam holding Lake Nyos in its crater is made of volcanic rock. It's eroding. Geologists have documented progressive weakening along the dam wall. If it fails, not if the gas erupts again, if the dam itself gives way, the lake drains. A flood carrying millions of cubic meters of CO2-saturated water surges downstream into the valleys below. The estimates say up to 10,000 people. Lake Nyos isn't a historical disaster. It's an ongoing one. The lake is still loaded. The dam is still weakening. The villages remain evacuated, but the downstream population has grown. There was no fire, no flood, no shaking earth, just silence. And 1,700 people who went to sleep and didn't wake up. The thing about Lake Nyos is that it didn't look dangerous. It looked like a lake. Blue water, green hills, still air. The deadliest thing about it was how ordinary it seemed. Nature doesn't always warn you. Sometimes the danger is invisible, odorless, and already beneath the surface, just waiting for the moment the pressure becomes too much to hold. The people of Nyos and Suboom and Cha and Calm deserve to be remembered, not as statistics in a geological case study, but as people who built lives in a valley that was, without anyone knowing it, already full. If this one kept you up tonight, good. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Follow the Unlit Room wherever you listen. Tell a friend, but maybe don't tell them it's all real until after they've finished. Full story on the main channel. Follow if you're wide awake. That was the Unlit Room. See you in the dark.